One day while I was teaching my students, I decided to ask them a random question. I cannot really remember the reason for that question, but I just asked them. So I asked them, how many of you want to be teachers in the future? I was not expecting what happened that day, but what happened that day changed my life forever. So after asking that question, I waited for some seconds and no hands were raised. So I tried to talk to them, to explain to them the benefit of being a teacher, the impact of being a teacher and all that. And then I asked the question again, how many of you want to be teachers? And in a class of about 50 students, no hands were raised. So I asked them, why don't you want to be teachers? And they began to, students laughing and all that. And then a few of them started talking from the back, right? You know how students do. So I pointed to one of them and said, okay, tell me, why don't you want to be a teacher? And the student said, these few words that changed my life. I don't want to be a teacher because teachers are poor. And every other student in the class agreed to the statement of that particular student. That means that student was saying the mind of every other student. And that statement hit me like a ton of brick. I couldn't really concentrate. I couldn't really continue with the class the way I was teaching. I was thinking about that. Teachers are poor. Teachers are poor. So I went out and I tried to encourage myself. I went to the parking lot of the school. Mind you, I teach in a public school in Nigeria. I went to the parking lot and I saw cars parked outside. I said, but teachers are not poor. Look at the cars that we have there. And then a second thought came. How many of these cars are owned by male teachers? And when I got that question, I discovered that among the dozens of cars that were in that parking lot, only one car was owned by a man, owned by a male teacher. I now discovered that all the cars that were owned by the female teachers in the school were actually bought by their husbands. So, truly, those students were right. But they failed to complete the statement. Teachers are poor, especially the male teachers. So, from that day, I began to ask myself, so I'm teaching a group of students who do not want to be like me. Then I should be doing something different. That was the turning point in my career as a teacher. Many teachers have been told that, teaching is a calling and all that and all that. Even while you're suffering, you assume that, yeah, I'm doing a noble job. But you still have to pay your bills, right? So that was a turning point in my life. I began to ask myself, how do I change my financial situation without changing my profession? And while I was pondering, I came up with an idea. I started up my TikTok page. That was 3 years ago. I've grown my tutorial page from 0 followers to over 600,000 followers in about 3 years. Not too long ago, I began to ask myself, how many teachers are still in that situation that I was 3 years ago? How many teachers are still sitting on a gold mine while living paycheck to paycheck? And that's why I created this TikTok page, to help teachers just like myself maximize their potentials. Many want to teach, many love the profession, but they are working with old models. So if you're a teacher who believes in financial freedom and entrepreneurship, I want to invite you to join me on this journey. Just like this video and follow for more content. I'll be sharing my journey from being a classroom teacher to tutoring students all across the world, from the US to United Kingdom to Australia. I have students all over the world, and I would like to share my experience with you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. See you.